Now with the latest weekend headlines, it's the ITV News.
The police are being investigated into why they decided it was safe to give the Plymouth gunman his gun and licence back. Just weeks before his devastating attack, they were returned to Jake Davison after being confiscated. He went on to kill 5 people. Tonight, the faces of all his victims are pictured for the first time.
It's tragic beyond words, really, really tragic, for a range of reasons, and obviously those involved. And I'm sure everyone would have known each other, and this will really touch so many people's lives.
Also on the programme, the President of Afghanistan addresses his nation as the Taliban continues their violent advance on Kabul. Come forward or risk your life, the cancer warning to thousands of people putting off vital checks. And the fans are back as Manchester United get 5 against Leeds.
This is ITV News with Duncan Golestani.
Good evening. The police watchdog is investigating why Devon and Cornwall police decided to give a gun and permit back to the man who shot 5 people dead in Plymouth. Jake Davison had his gun and certificate confiscated last December following an allegation of assault, but they were returned to him just weeks before his rampage on Thursday. Today, the Home Secretary, Priti Patel, visited the scene and described the killings as tragic beyond words. More flowers have been left in memory of the victims as more details and pictures of all 5 were revealed. From Plymouth, Chloe Keedy reports.
Today we learned a little more about these 5 lives, but nothing that can help anyone understand why they were taken. His mother, 51-year-old Maxine Davison, Lee Martin and his 3-year-old daughter Sophie. We now know Stephen Washington, a 59-year-old carer, was out for a walk when he was attacked. And this is 66-year-old Kate Fisher, who died of her injuries in hospital. Not everybody in Keyham knew them personally, but most are still trying to process their loss. This is a quiet, close community, clinging together.
We left our candles here last night, but we just wanted to relight what was already here to keep it burning.
Everyone's come together and shown their support. Yeah, definitely. And
it won't just be today, it'll be for a long time to come.
Yeah.
Barbara works in the local supermarket, and here she says that means you get to know everyone. Lee Martin and Maxine Davison were 2 of her regulars.
She was a lovely lady. I loved her. She was really nice and very kind lady.
Barbara was here with her family on Thursday evening. They rushed home when they realised that something terrible was unfolding nearby.
It just always brings tears to my eyes.
It made you feel sad? Caitlin is still trying to process what she witnessed that evening. After seeing one of the victims being given CPR in the street, her first thought was to rush to the nearest playground and help get children inside.
I definitely think people are angry and frustrated as to why this could have happened and why they couldn't see anything before.
22-year-old Jake Davison was in legal possession of a shotgun and a shotgun licence. There are now questions about why both had been returned to him by police weeks before he carried out his deadly attack.
How on earth did he get a gun licence in the first place? What background checks were done? So I'm glad there's the investigation already into why the licence was returned. I do think there's wider questions here, and that could involve a review of the gun licensing laws, because there are other questions here that urgently need to be addressed.
Were the checks done correctly?
But the Home Secretary wasn't answering questions today. She visited Keyham to lay flowers and speak to people who live here.
A lot of people will be affected by this as well. I mean, it's tragic beyond words, really, really tragic, for a range of reasons, and obviously those involved.
An investigation into Devon and Cornwall police is now underway, but today their forensics officers were focused on finding answers to what happened here 48 hours ago.
Chloe, a lot of questions still unanswered this evening and still a terrible sense of loss there.
Yeah, that's right. And I should say the force is being investigated by the Independent Office for Police Conduct. That's a mandatory referral, and it's likely to take some time. People here do have questions, but I think the overwhelming feeling here today is one of sadness. You're walking around here today. One of the things that really struck me was just how quiet the place is. And speaking to people that live here, I'm told it's not always this quiet. I think there really is just a sense of shock and one of reflection. I think people want to show their support. As you saw, people have been bringing flowers, but there are also 4 books of condolence that have been opened across the city. There's one in a church, one in a school, and I think things will be happening for the days and weeks to come. There is a church service planned at Plymouth Minster on Wednesday, and there's also a minute's silence planned at 11 a.m. on Monday to remember the people who died.
Chloe Keedy in Plymouth, thank you. In a nationwide TV address, Afghanistan's President Ashraf Ghani says his priority is to remobilise the country's armed forces as Taliban fighters continue to make big gains across the country, with the insurgents now inching ever closer to the capital. Meanwhile, British and American troops are flying into Kabul to evacuate their diplomats and families from the city. Mark Mallet has more.
Somewhere in the mountains surrounding Afghanistan's capital city of Kabul, Taliban fighters getting ready to try and take control. The battle for Kabul is thought to be imminent. US officials estimate that this city could fall to the Taliban within 30 days. But it could happen sooner, such as the speed in which this military offensive is advancing. It's even taken the Afghan president by surprise. He delivered a televised address earlier. Ashraf Ghani used his first public comments since the latest offensive began to cry for help. President Ghani said he was consulting with local leaders and the international community. Pictures have appeared on social media over the last couple of days. They're unverified, but appear to show the Taliban running rampage through a number of cities. They now control 19 of Afghanistan's 34 provinces. As the US prepares to formally withdraw from the country, bringing an end to a 20-year mission. Some believe that little has been achieved during the 2 decades.
Nothing's changed, basically. What were their goals? I don't think many of them were accomplished, because you see how rapidly everything came back to the situation that was before.
And is there a great deal of shock at what has happened here?
Indeed. Nobody expected them to progress so fast.
These are some of the 600 British troops due to arrive in Kabul this weekend, as many Western countries scramble to evacuate their diplomats and citizens and help relocate Afghans who assisted NATO and who now risk reprisals for their actions. The Afghan president has vowed not to give up the gains of the last 2 decades, but with the mission to overthrow the Taliban being replaced by the Taliban's mission to overthrow the West, the only gains being made right now are by the insurgents. Mark Mallet, ITV News.
There are fears of many deaths in Haiti, which has been hit by a 7.2 magnitude earthquake. The epicentre is in the west of the country, about 80 miles from the capital, Port-au-Prince. Officials say there have been some fatalities, but there are no precise numbers so far. Images on social media show damaged and collapsed buildings. In 2010, a similar earthquake killed an estimated 200,000 people. Here, the cost of NHS COVID tests for people arriving in the UK are being reduced from today. The cost for people returning from green list countries or those fully vaccinated arriving from amber list destinations is to go down from £88 to £68. The price of 2 tests has also been cut from £170 to £136 for amber arrivals who are not fully vaccinated. Meanwhile, children in Ireland aged between 12 and 15 have been getting the COVID jab from today. Thousands have signed up to receive the vaccine. Only Pfizer or Moderna will be used, and children will need the consent of one parent or guardian. And nearly 600 migrants crossed the English Channel on a single day this week, setting a new daily record. The previous highest was just under 500, set just over a week ago. There's a warning that thousands of people with possible cancer symptoms could be risking their lives by not seeking medical checks. NHS England say they are open and ready to treat them. It's feared that many people aren't coming forward as they don't want to be seen as a burden on health service because of the pandemic. Graham Stothard spoke to one patient who regrets not getting checked earlier.
It was during the first lockdown Andy started feeling symptoms. He ignored them and convinced himself they would go away. But they didn't.
I was living in denial, just putting it off. Maybe it'd go away next week or the following week. Maybe it's something I was eating. But by the time it got to October, beginning of November, then I got in touch with my doctor.
She referred him on, he had tests done, and in December, he got the bad news. Stage 2 bowel cancer.
I was just shocked. I mean, my wife broke down. She just couldn't believe it. But my surgeon was full of confidence that, because it was stage 2, we can battle this.
His is not an isolated case. According to NHS bosses, he's one of thousands possibly risking their lives by not getting checked early.
If you come forward and are diagnosed with a cancer at an early stage, your chance of being cured and being a long-term survivor is 5 to 10 times that of someone who unfortunately comes later on.
New research has shown 60% of people are worried about burdening the NHS, and nearly 50% of us are more likely to delay treatment compared to before the pandemic. To combat this, a new campaign, Help Us, Help You, is being launched.
Patients are very intuitive. Patients know when something isn't right, and they tell us all the time that often, if they have been reassured by other members of the family or potentially healthcare professionals, they persisted because they knew that something wasn't right. And so we would urge anyone in that situation to continue to seek help in order to try and be diagnosed.
Symptoms vary widely depending on the cancer. Andy caught his in time. He had surgery on the 15th of December, and this photo was taken the day he found out he was cancer-free.
Do you remember that, Matt? Yeah, okay. After the operation.
He put together a book of such photographs to remind himself of the doctors and nurses who saved his life and gave him more time with his family. Graham Stothard, ITV News.
On to the sport now, football, and last season's Premier League runners-up Manchester United are off to the best possible start this time round, thrashing Leeds United 5-1 with a hat-trick for Bruno Fernandes. Stuart Silvers has been watching the action.
The fans back inside Old Trafford, starting with a minute's applause for those that both these famous clubs lost during lockdown. And after 29 minutes, the sound once more of the home crowd cheering a Manchester United goal.
And Bruno Fernandes scores Manchester United's first Premier League goal of the season.
Leeds hit back early in the second half, a goal for the many travelling fans to remember.
Bailey with a chance to shoot, and he does! Oh, that's brilliant!
But the home side were back in front within 4 minutes.
But here goes the speedy Greenwood. Good miss for Manchester United.
Then Fernandes took over, keeping his cool before goal-line technology confirmed his second. No debate about his third, the finish of a player brimming with confidence.
In for the hat-trick, oh, anything else?
And there was no stopping Manchester United now. 4 goals in 14 minutes.
There's another one. It's Fred.
Football's just not been the same without the fans. Stuart Silvers, ITV News.
And there were plenty of goals for the supporters to enjoy on the first full day of Premier League action. As well as Manchester United, there were also wins for Brighton, Chelsea, Everton, Leicester and Watford. Norwich and Liverpool are playing right now. At Lord's, England captain Joe Root has once again led a comeback. Root reached 150 as he helped his side go into a first innings lead against India. England are currently 376 for 9, a lead of 12 runs. And finally, a special happy birthday. One of Edinburgh Zoo's 2 giant pandas, Yang Wan, turns 18 today. He's been in the zoo since 2011, along with Chan Chan. She turns 18 later this month. The pair are in Edinburgh under a 10-year deal with the China Wildlife Conservation Association, and talks are taking place to see if they can stay here even longer after the current arrangements run out later this year. And that is it for now. I'm back with the late news at a slightly earlier time of 9:35. Until then, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.